Joining me right now is Oklahoma Congressman Markwayne Mullin. He's a member of the Energy and Commerce and Intelligence Committees. He's running for Senate in Oklahoma. Congressman, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me on.
I mean, can this get any worse? Gasoline at all-time highs, inflation at 40-year highs, food shortages, and now blackouts this summer. What are you expecting?
Well, this is what you expect when you elect a career politician. I tell people, if you're ever going to change Washington, D.C., you got to start changing the resume you send there. You got a 40-year career politician that is trying to run the country. He's running on a socialist agenda. And when you have a republic that works for a democracy that's for the people, by the people, then you have growth. When you have a socialist agenda, you have a government takeover. And anything the government has ever touched, it's always destroyed. And that's exactly what's happening right now in our energy sector. You have a policy that they see that's happening. You have Joe Biden that comes out, Maria, and says that I can't control gas prices, yet that's a flat-out lie because it's his policies that's driven us to this place. And he sees another disaster is coming, and what does he do? He backs off. I bet he'll probably end up assigning Vice President Harris to take over this crisis, just like he did on the southern border, and you know how well that's went.
Unbelievable. So would you be willing to say then that you would support term limits? You're talking about a 40-year person in Congress. Do you support term limits then?
If the term limits apply to everybody, you bet. But it's got to apply to everybody across the board. Because if you have pockets, if you have one state that doesn't and the other state that doesn't, then what you're doing is you're basically giving power to one state or another. But we do need to get people out. Citizen legislators are supposed to go home and live underneath the same rules they pass. When you stay in Washington, D.C., then you lose touch of reality. That's why my wife and I, we've still invested in Oklahoma. We employ hundreds of people and we created thousands of jobs throughout the state of Oklahoma. Even since we've been in office. The fact of the matter is we are a true citizen legislator, and when you have somebody that their best job and their identity is their elected position in Washington, D.C., you have a huge problem because they've lost touch with reality. When we're elected to office, what we're supposed to do is influence. We're supposed to bring the state that we're representing and influence Washington, D.C. We are influencing, bringing Oklahoma values to Washington, D.C. What's happened with Joe Biden is he brings, I don't know, California policies and is trying to influence the rest of the country, and he's not even from California?
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand how these politicians who've been in place for 40 years come out of Congress with tens of millions of dollars.
Oh, I'd like to know that too. Yeah. I would like to know that too. I mean, how do you have Nancy Pelosi and her husband that she came to Washington, D.C. as an intern, and now they're worth hundreds of millions of dollars? I don't understand that.
What's the salary for a congressperson right now?
$176,000.
$176,000 a year. So how is it possible that she has tens of millions of dollars? Joe Biden has tens of millions of dollars.
Right. I don't understand this. I tell people that the worst business investment my wife never made was us coming to Washington, D.C. Because we're not trying to take advantage of it. We came here because we were fed up with what was happening in our companies and wanted to come in here and bring some real life experience to Washington, D.C. When you have people that's corrupt, that's trying to take advantage of the situation, trying to game the system, which obviously has happened with some of the Democrat leadership, that's what you end up happening. And they're more concerned about self-preservation and power than they are about doing what's right for our country.
By the way, which Democrat leadership?
Well, let's look at Nancy Pelosi and let's look at the President of the United States. You mentioned it yourself. What was their net worth when they came in?
Right.
And they've only been in D.C. for over 40 years. How did they gain the wealth that they have right now if they wasn't trying to game the system? So
let me move on to policy. What are you all going to get done in this sprint to the July 4th recess? Yesterday, actor and Uvalde native Matthew McConaughey made an emotional plea from the White House urging changes to gun laws. Here's Matthew McConaughey yesterday. Watch.
We need to invest in mental health care. We need background checks. We need to raise the minimum age to purchase an AR-15 rifle to 21. We need a waiting period for those rifles. We need red flag laws and consequences for those who abuse them.
So what do you say to that, sir? I mean, the House is expected to vote on gun legislation today. Can you give us an update, Congressman?
Well, listen, Matthew has the right to make an emotional plea. My obligation is to uphold the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution is very clear. It has a full sin with the Second Amendment. Full sin says it shall not be infringed. Full stop. If the American people, because we are a government for the people, by the people, they want to change the Second Amendment, we don't change it by legislators making an emotional decision. We change it by having a constitutional a convention of the states and have a constitutional change by letting the people vote by 2/3 to make those changes. So I get he has a position to do it. For us, we have to uphold the Constitution. That's what every one of us that serve in the House of Representatives or in the Senate have done. The same thing. And so what he's trying to say is, I understand what he's trying to say, but he's making an emotional plea. What's going to happen in the Senate and the House today and tomorrow is they're going to try to ram these gun laws down the throats of the American people, which 95% of the representatives that walks the halls have never seen it or been able to even read it, and they're going to vote in it overwhelmingly by the Democrats. You're going to see Republicans not support this.
Real quick, what else gets done in this next little period before the recess? Are you expecting China tariffs to go away? Are you expecting a reconciliation bill to materialize between Chuck Schumer and Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema? What else gets done?
Well, I would like to make a prediction, but we've seen this, Maria, over and over again with the Republicans versus the Democrats. The Democrats are making an emotional plea. Every time the wind changes, they try to go that direction. So what I expect to see is more chaos. I consider to see more. I will consider a success if we can stay the course of anything. But what I expect is chaos, moving from one crisis to the next, and they only make each crisis worse instead of actually diving down and trying to solve the issue. They try to enforce more government. And as I said when we first started, every time government gets involved in something, they seem to really mess it up.
Yeah, that's too bad, Congressman. Like I said, term limits. Markwayne Mullin, great to see you this morning, and we'll be watching the developments. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.